Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel, and we've got another new shell that we've never tried before, or at least not this variant of this shell. So I'm definitely excited to see what it can do, because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty devastating to say the least. Based on the last results we saw out of a similar shell to this, or this shell just in a different shot size, I expect to see some pretty nasty looking patterns from these as well. But as for those shells, big thank you to Keith and the guys over at Salt Creek for sending some of these out. I'm not paid or sponsored or anything by them. They just make a really good shell and wanted to see me try them, so they sent over some of these, the Salt Creek triple threat shells. Now these ones are the 12 gauge, 3 inch, 2 ounce payload of T shot size, moving about 1250 feet per second. Now if you have not seen, we did do several tests with the triple threats here, and the patterns were devastating to put it lightly. And I really don't expect anything different out of these. Now with them being TSS Ts, yes these are TSS, you're going to be packing quite a bit of energy downrange, like pretty well into buckshot type of energy territory. So although I might not use these for deer, I don't even know that T is legal for deer here in Virginia anyway, but with them being TSS Ts, theoretically you could use these on deer, and I don't think it would feel very good. But really, fox, coyote, other predators, hogs, that kind of stuff, this is going to be just absolutely a devastating shell for them. So I'm definitely curious to see how the T shot size actually performs. And as for the setup we've got to run through today, I brought out the Remington 1187, and as for a choke, I put the factory stock improved cylinder choke in the gun. Now I did talk to Keith, and he said these tend to perform pretty well in the improved cylinder to modified choke type of range. So I figured we'll start off with the improved cylinder, and based on what we see, we can try other chokes up or down from there. So I figured this will be a good starting point for today at least. And as for today's test, everything is going to be the same as we usually do it with these predator slash buckshot type of patterns. I've got a big sheet of paper set up downrange at 40 yards. I've also got the chronograph so we can get our velocity. And I've got a couple templates that we lay up over our target for a little better reference point as to how they actually performed. I expect to see some pretty nasty looking patterns out of these shells, but let's go over here and take this shot and just see what kind of performance we can get with these triple threat TSS T-shot shells through this improved cylinder today. Alright, so let's take a peek at our chrono number real quick. That shell gave us 1101 through the chrono. The boss claim is 1250, so we are a little bit under that claim. And I honestly don't think that's too unusual for these triple threat shells either. From what I remember, so at least out of my particular setups, I think this is pretty usual for these shells. And with them being a TSS T shot, 1100 feet per second is still going to be packing the energy down there at 40 yards. Well, what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down there? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, that is pretty devastating, to put it lightly. We might have been just a touch low and a touch left of my actual point of aim, which is the white dot there. Now, I did count and measure the actual pattern here as I was putting the circles on the paper. We had 48 pellets there, and all of them are right at a 20-inch spread, and that's from the farthest 2 points across. So 48 pellets worth of TSS Ts, all within a 20-inch circle at 40 yards. That is pretty impressive to say the least. And if we move this up to a modified choke and this pattern gets tighter, that is a legitimate hog hunter and deer hunter as well at that point. Even this pattern would absolutely be devastating on those. But if we can get it within a 10-inch circle or so and have every one of these pellets going through the vitals on one of those little bit larger size animals, it ain't going to be a very good day for them, that's for sure. So very, very impressive just on the bare paper here, but let's throw a couple templates up and see what it actually looks like in some more real life type of scenarios. Alright, so here's our 10-inch circle, and if we line it up with the actual core area of the pattern, we had 24 pellets in there for sure. And with us having 48 pellets in the load, that is half of the pellets actually in a 10-inch circle. And as you can see, if that was the vital sized area on whatever you would be hunting with these, it would not be a very good day for them. So definitely looking pretty good there, but let's actually throw a couple animal templates up and see what it looks like. We'll start off with the deer template for those of you that would actually hunt deer with this type of a shell, and see how that one looks. Okay, here's that deer template, and if we line it up with where our point of aim would have been, as you can clearly see, I don't think he would have had too much fun with that. And I gotta be honest, that already is a pretty nice pattern on a deer. You really have pretty much everything right there through the lungs area. You would probably have a couple of them in the shoulder, but everything else would be right through that vital area. So overall, for the size of the pattern, definitely not bad at all for deer. At least you don't have shot covering just everywhere on him. You can pretty much get 90% of your pellets right through that vital area, which is nice when you have this many of them flying down range and you're trying not to damage any meat or anything like that you don't have to. So clearly pretty nice as for a deer pattern. I think we might be able to get it even a little bit tighter though with a modified choke. So when we test that, that should be pretty impressive. So looking perfectly fine as for a deer, but let's throw the hog up there, which is probably a little bit more common use for these shells. Is you hog hunters down there in the south and stuff, this would be a devastating shell for those guys. So let's throw that hog template up and see what that looks like. Okay, and here's that hog template, and it's pretty well the same story. Obviously, the hog is a little bit smaller, so you do have a little bit larger coverage on him than you would on the deer, but still, that would absolutely be a bad day for that hog. And that's probably what I would use these shells for, is that coyote to hog type of range. And with a shell like that and TSS Ts, it would not surprise me if you were predator hunting with this shell, if you couldn't pretty easily or reliably take a coyote or something out at like 75 yards or more with it, because that's going to be a good amount of energy flying down range. So definitely looking very, very good here for a starting point. And if we can tune that in even a little bit better than that, it's going to be very impressive. But I don't think we can argue one bit with that starting point there. That's going to do the job on whatever you would ever use these shells for. Okay, here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, definitely nothing fancy, but it clearly works very well. There's no rips, there's no tears, there's no snags, there's nothing stuck down in there. Looks very good. It opened up almost perfectly evenly. Maybe this one petal opened a touch farther than the rest, but that's definitely not a big deal. I think it pretty obviously did its job the way it was supposed to, so nothing weird to see here. All right, y'all. Well, what do you think about that result right there? That is pretty well what I expected to see. We saw some really nice patterns out of these triple threat TSS 4s when we tested them, and I really didn't expect anything different out of these. And I also think we pretty well hit the nail on the head on where to start with these with that improved cylinder. And now I'm really curious to see what they do if we step it up just a tiny little bit into a modified, even a light modified, which I do have one of those as well. This is already a really nice pattern, but if we can condense that down to like the 12 to 15 inch range and still have a nice circular uniform pattern, it'd be hard not to take that shell out for coyotes or foxes or hogs or even deer, if that's something that some of you guys out there would be interested in doing with these shells, because they definitely are capable of doing it. But as always, leave your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Salt Creek triple threat shells or the TSS Ts? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? What would you actually hunt with that kind of a shell with that shot size and stuff like that? And is there another choke that you might want to see these run through? Let me know all that down below. But at the end of the day here, that's a result that you just can't argue with. So once again, I expected nothing different from Salt Creek, but they've made a very nice performing shell. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox. You can send stuff if you'd like to. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.